Hello and welcome all to PolitiGood. I'm Rachel Parker.
And I'm Tim Fullerton.
And Tim Fullerton, you're a podcaster now. The time has finally come for Tim Fullerton.
It has arrived, not maybe in the political space that I was anticipating us launching this.
Do you want to talk about that for just a hot second and like how we recorded the first intro for this and how we were like, well, we can't use that anymore?
Yeah, so last week on Monday, or even maybe it was Tuesday, we recorded a much different intro and lighter than is appropriate now, I think is the best way to put it. And
it would come off perhaps a wee bit tone deaf if we had pushed that one out. So this is a redux and it's a reset, and I know how you're feeling, and then we'll talk about who we talked to. And we talked on the day after the election. Still, we honored the original date. Mm-hmm. But obviously the mood was quite different. So let me ask you first, before we talk about who we talked to. Mm-hmm. How are you? Just be honest. How are you? How are you?
You know, we've had a few days now. This is now the next week after. I am okay. I am obviously very sad and angry, to be honest, that we're in this situation again. But I've done my mourning, and now I want to figure out how to fight and how to stand up for people.
Just zoomed through all the stages of grief and you just got right to acceptance. We are.
I mean, in 2016, when basically the same thing happened, I was devastated for a long time, and I didn't know what to think or make of it. And, you know, we've been through a version of this before, and, you know, we saw some really successful techniques to push back on President Trump and a Republican Congress. And this time it's actually going to be harder for him because his House majority is going to be much smaller. So that is giving me some...
And not as cohesive either.
No. I mean, they're looking at probably a 3 to 4 seat majority. Many of those are going to be in swing districts, which is going to make it very difficult for some of those members of Congress to take the really hard votes, the really right-wing votes that he wants, because if they do that, they can essentially kiss their seats goodbye in 2022, which I think by all accounts will be, you know, a real opportunity for us to grind the administration to a halt. And so I've also been looking at this more of a 2-year sprint than trying to process 4 years, because we have a real opportunity to take back the House. Every party in power has lost seats in the midterm this isn't really a first term, so it's kind of a little bit of a wonky one.
Can I just interrupt your flow for just a sec to say how I kind of see this? I unfortunately see that we had a 4-year reprieve in the 8-year term of Donald Trump, and my hope is that the rule of law will mostly prevail, and that we will still have access to free and fair elections. I'm not trying to sound alarmist, but that is sort of an up in the air question, and it wasn't one that most voters seem to be particularly concerned about.
Right.
It's one that deeply concerns me. And what I'm optimistic is a strong word. But St. Louis is a city that is full of organizers. Now, unfortunately, Cori Bush lost her primary this last cycle, and I think that is unfortunate for the current state of this conversation we're having about. And this is probably a good place to, as we, by the way, for everybody who's never heard of me and has no idea who's this person talking with Tim Fullerton, you'll get to know me. I'll talk about myself a little bit more. You're going to hear about me more when we talk about to our guests this week, which I was so excited to talk to you about. And they were so generous and so kind and so available. But my feeling is that we go through these waves where the left and the center left grabs power when the right shits the bed. It's just the way America is. It's just how we are. It's just it's one of those things where I don't think people should feel guilty about I was excited It was a mirage, whatever. I wouldn't get too. Was my advice to people. I live in Missouri, so I just said St. Louis. Some people don't even know that's in Missouri. True story. I went to go pick up a friend of mine at the airport, and I drove past him, and I didn't see him, and he didn't see my car. And he said, "Well, I thought I saw your car, but there was a Missouri plate on it." I was like, "Dude, St. Louis is in Missouri." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about where St. Louis was." So anyway, we are acquainted with loss here.
Right.
And I would like to personally apologize to every single American for Josh Hawley. We tried. Claire McCaskill really tried. So did Lucas Coons. And so I think I've learned a lot about how do you organize in a space where everything feels hopeless all the time. So I'm good at that. And that is good.
And I was going to say, and I think that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about here. And the reason that we called it PolitiGood, which was kind of an accident. I thought you said the name, and then I said it out loud, and you were like, "I didn't say that, but that sounds good." And that's, sort of how we have operated. But we're going to be talking with folks that, have experienced being on this side, but still able to do good things, and I think that there is a lot of opportunities at the state level. There's a lot of opportunities with businesses still, I think, to do right. And we saw some of that in the wake of 2016. And I think we're going to talk about the good stuff out there, and we'll talk about the bad as well. But that's sort of our goal here, is to show people that there is hope and that there is some excitement out there. I mean, look, here's another one for you. And, we can talk about elections and what he's going to do with that. But, Donald Trump is a lame duck president. He's a lame duck. Starting when he is sworn in. I mean, we'll see with elections, right? If the institutions hold.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully. It should be true. He should be.
Right. There is no reading of the Constitution that suggests that he can keep going. It's pretty clear. And so we have to operate like that. And that's why I think that the next 2 years are going to be very dark. There's going to be a lot of pain. And I don't want we're not going to be here minimizing that.
Oh, no. We are not glass half full people. No. We are not like the grass is greener. It's always darkest before. No, this is going to be this is shit. We're in the shit right now.
Right. But in it, there are things that we need to be doing now to ensure that we at least take back the House in 2026. And there are Senate opportunities as well. Susan Collins will be 74 or 5. She may run, she may not. And I think if she doesn't in particular, that is a monster opportunity for Democrats to grab a seat that they probably wouldn't lose again because of the way that Maine is sort of moving. And there are other opportunities as well. But there's the House is the big prize there. We're only going to be down 2, 3, 4 seats.
Right.
It's almost like that's going to happen. So,
right.
And then if we gum that up, then he is a lame duck for 2 years. And then people are going to have to take votes for his agenda that are going to screw him in 2 more years. That, I think that's something that's not being talked about because obviously this has been devastating and there's going to be so much pain, but there is hope out there as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing so you and I are both, and I think we'll probably dedicate, my guess is that we'll probably dedicate kind of a whole episode to why Tim, why Rachel, why you two, why should I listen to you in a sea of political content? Why? So we are also going to talk about, because we're both career strategist, communication people who have bridged media, digital media, nonprofits. You've worked for an administration. You worked for a presidential campaign. I've worked on smaller campaigns, and I've done stuff more kind of on the entertainment side of the world than you have. So that gives us this kind of tremendous breadth of not just knowledge, but we kind of understand how these things kind of all layer on top of each other. Right. And I'm going to quote, I was really hoping I was going to be able to quote her as our first president, who was a Black Asian woman, but I'm going to quote Vice President Harris when I say, I too love a Venn diagram. I think they're very instructive. Mm-hmm. And I like the way that you can kind of layer things on top of each other and see how they kind of interconnect. And for me, there is a massive disconnect always between how technology is used affects how people vote. And I'm not just talking about misinformation. I'm talking about, people don't understand how these systems even operate. They don't understand what they are. When I remind people that AI is software, it's just software. It's new software, but it's software. Mm-hmm. That's what it is, software. It's not a human being. It's not an artificial. Artificial intelligence sounds like it's going to kill you. It's not. It's a piece of software. And I think, like, as subtle as that sounds, most people just don't understand anything about Silicon Valley or Washington, D.C., or because it's presented in ways that are terrible. So I think we're going to hopefully help people develop good media habits, too. That's another thing. Yep. And also talk about good people in those spaces who are making good products, who are treating their employees and their staff with respect and kindness and compassion, and also trying to affect change in the world in whatever way they can. So I think it's going to be cool because we're going to be able, I think, hopefully talk to a lot of different people. Yeah, and I think,
Silicon Valley and D.C. have never been more, there's never been more of an overlap. So it's really important to be talking about both the political perspective of it, right, and the business perspective and, like, how all of this is working. And, I think there will be some interesting conversations ahead. And like you said, Rachel, we are interviewing good people. So if somebody is on this podcast, they are a good person, well worth listening to. I'd like to think we're good people too, which is why we're doing this. Or
we're going to have a good conversation with someone who doesn't agree with us necessarily, but it won't be somebody who's, like, belligerently argumentative. No. Right? Like, one example would be, I don't want to come up with any example. Let's say somebody who's an academic where I'm just like, I think you're kind of full of shit, but, like, you're not venal. And so
let's have a conversation. Yeah,
let's have a conversation. Let's have a good conversation where we're not just screaming at each other.
Yep.
All right. So with that said, I would like for you to talk about who we did our inaugural PolitiGood podcast with.
Well, so for those of you who don't know, I was one of the organizers of White Dudes for Harris, which was sort of, at least from the Democratic side, a bit of a cultural phenomenon for a while. We raised $4.8 million. We had 200,000 people on our first organizing call. We organized over 10,000 white dudes on the ground as well. And so we're going to be talking with my friends and colleagues, Brad Bauman, Sam Dryzmala and Mike Nellis, all seasoned political operatives. Sam and I worked on the Obama campaign in 2008 and have known each other for a long time. Mike Nellis was a senior advisor to Kamala Harris in 2020 when she ran the first time. And Brad Bauman has been a communications master for years and years and years. And they're also just great guys. And so we're going to talk about our experience a little bit. But more importantly, some of the things that we have learned and some of the things that we think we need to do moving forward, not just for white men, but that comes up a lot, but sort of, trying to diagnose some of the structural issues, because I think we all agree that Kamala ran a great campaign. She didn't have enough time. She did. I think she was fantastic, but the headwinds, for many reasons, were just against her. And I just
want to say that too. Like, I haven't heard one person who, I've seen, like, dumb thought pieces, but I haven't seen one piece that says, Jesus, she should have done, like, I haven't seen, it hasn't really leaked out. I feel like if she had been incompetent or whatever, it would have leaked up. And I don't think Kamala Harris is going to write a book like another woman who ran for president did, where she blames her team. I think she's going to take full responsibility for what didn't happen. And I think also what we talk about, and then I think we'll just cut over to the interview if that's okay with you.
Let's do it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say is what I really like, and I want to kind of keep people to listen for this, is that we talk about these are cultural problems. We're not going to, one election, one cycle doesn't change a nation, and there are millions of people. Millions and millions. He won the popular vote. Like, he won. Like, whatever. He won. Yep. Dude won. He smashed. What are you going to say? The guy just kicked everybody. He just won. But there are millions of people who voted for Kamala Harris throughout that Red Sea that you look at. Millions of people. And we talk about, I think, pretty effectively, why there's a sense of alienation from building community in a lot of these spaces. And I think that is something I really got a lot out of. And I thought these guys really, I pushed back a little bit, and I thought they handled it really well. And I'm really excited for people to listen to it. What were you going to say? Go ahead. Then we'll go to the interview.
No. I think we should just dive into it. These guys have a lot of cool things to say, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Let's go. I'm thrilled to be here, and I want to thank you all for showing up. I know that you must be exhausted and disappointed because this isn't what any of us certainly were hoping for. But I think it takes a lot of guts to show up in the full light of failure and talk about what your next steps are. So thanks so much for being here.
Great. Brad, we're going to go to you next.
Hey, I'm Brad Bauman, and I'm one of the guys who did White Dudes for Harris. And, my goal for the next hour is to ensure that the first episode of PolitiGood is not the last episode. So, I'm here. Yeah, that's all I'm doing here for the next hour. If I could do that, I'm a happy guy. By day, I am a communications operative. I work for Raven, which is a full-service public relations communications firm. And over the past couple months, I have been just super gratified to work with Tim, to work with Sam, to work with Mike, to work with our buddy Ross on White Dudes for Harris. And, man, what a ride.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Nellis. I am a 20-year veteran of Democratic political campaigns. I'm a former senior advisor to Kamala Harris. I am the founder and CEO of Authentic, which is a digital agency that works with Democratic campaigns and social impact causes. So we work with Adam Schiff and Tammy Baldwin, who both won their Senate elections on Tuesday. And I've helped raise over $1 billion in low-dollar grassroots contributions. If you have ever gotten a fundraising email and you thought, hey, that's pretty good, I wrote it. Didn't like it. I didn't write it. And then I'm one of the founders of White Dudes for Harris. I think my official title is shit poster in chief. But really, I'm responsible for the broader digital strategy and memes. So,
all right, Sam.
Hey, I'm Sam Dryzmala. I am the founder of Progressive Victory and At Dawn Campaigns, and we work with live streaming content influencers who drive a ton of action and a ton of engagement, and I'm here to tell you that not all video views are made the same.
I love it.
Yeah, and really, my role with White Dudes for Harris was to help prepare some of the initial outreach that we did on social media for influencers and partners that we were bringing on, and then ran all the technical. I have a team that runs the technical background for all the live the meetings that we did that we broadcasted to YouTube.
And Sam also was my colleague in 2008 on the Obama email team. And I would say that Sam was the unsung hero of the White Dudes for Harris. Like, he was doing all the things that made it all work. And I think that's important to say. So thank you, Sam, and thank you, everybody. So obviously, this did not go the way that we wanted it to, in the worst way possible. I think we had some great successes with the White Dudes for Harris group, but really it was just the beginning, and I don't think it's worth really resting on our laurels too much because we lost. So I think I would love to hear from everybody sort of like how we move forward, especially I think with the Democratic Party in general, but the White Dudes too, because we did tap into something, and it was really just the beginning of the work. And I would love to just hear from everybody and where do you think we should kind of go from here? And I'm going to go to Mike first. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure. I have a bunch of thoughts. I'm glad to hear you still have laurels, Tim, because I'm not sure that I do. So I'm not sure I can spell laurel. So I have just a smattering of ideas of where to go from here. Obviously, I'm really sad. I'm more angry, probably than anything about what happened on Tuesday. The very first thing we need to do is we need to question every single assumption that we have in the Democratic Party. And we need to question the way that we run our campaigns. We need to question the strategies that we employ, the way we communicate with people. And I would liken this moment to, I forget which year it was, but there was a year when Lorne Michaels fired every single cast member at SNL except for Eddie Murphy. If you're working in Democratic politics right now, you better be able to articulate why you're Eddie Murphy, because losing to Donald Trump again suggests to me that we need to make some changes. And I'm not targeting anybody specifically right now because I don't really know who is. I don't know if I'm Eddie Murphy right now. Maybe I should just go get a real job. That's the number one thing, because the way we're running these campaigns isn't working. The way we're communicating with people isn't working. The second thing is we need to take a good hard look about why people dislike us so much. I'm really tired of hearing about the unique appeal that Donald Trump has. I'm really tired of hearing about his special magic. He ran a horrible campaign. He's not a great person. And I don't think he has special sauce. I think that people don't like us and people don't trust us. And you can date some of that trust issues to undelivered promises from the Obama administration, the Clinton administration going back. You can date some of that to the Monica Lewinsky stuff with Bill Clinton. I think you can trace that back to, honestly, like, what happened over the summer with Joe Biden and his health. I think we need to probably own up to that and the way that this played out, because it was less than ideal. And not to mention the fact that, God love Joe Biden. I love him. I think he's a good president. And I think he's going to get a bad rap after what happened this week. But he promised to be a generational figure. He promised to step aside, and he didn't, and give us an opportunity to pick the future of the party. That didn't happen, and I think that was a mistake. I understand why he didn't do it, but it was a mistake. And then the third thing is really wrestling with how we talk about our policies, and that starts with the economy and creating opportunity and freedom of opportunity for everybody to retire with dignity and buy a house and start a family, and having the freedom to do that, and how we talk to people who don't believe that we're in we have their best interests at heart right now. And like, I'm thinking about young people who are like, God, how do I buy a house? How do I get a spouse? How do I start a family? Like, they don't have answers for that, and we're not providing them a blueprint for that. And I'm thinking about, people that are close to retirement that don't trust us. Like, I'm thinking about all the votes we lost in the Hispanic community and why they don't trust us, and that's probably economic and cultural. There are changes that need to be made in the Democratic Party. And I'm not suggesting we throw anybody off of the ship. So I want to be clear when I say these things. Like, our values shouldn't change. The people we're fighting for shouldn't change. But a lot of other things have to change, because if you look at the results of this election, the people of Arizona passed a ballot initiative to protect abortion rights, but didn't vote for Kamala Harris. People of Montana did the same. They didn't vote for John Tester. Missouri voted for a $15 minimum wage, but, I love Lucas, but he didn't do very well in that election, right? There's all kinds of opportunities where our policies and the direction we want to take this country are succeeding, but our candidates are not. And I would attribute a good chunk of that to people being pretty mad at the Biden administration and Kamala Harris having to pay for the sins of that. That's the risk of being a VP. But those are the places that I would start. And I realize that that's like 15,000 buckets of worms for us to get into. But that's where I would start. And I would hand it off to, Brad Bauman, who's way smarter than I am.
Oh, please, Mike. Honestly, I feel like if I had gone first, I would have answered pretty much the exact same way you did, only much less articulate and with many more cuss words. Because, honestly,
I like cuss words, Brad. So don't hold back because of me.
The cuss words will come. Don't worry. I'm not.
I don't think you have to worry about that.
This is a moment where we, as the Democratic Party, need to have a lot of introspection, because, to your point, Mike, our problems are not tactical, and our problems are not, with the ways in which we are necessarily doing things. Our problems are probably much bigger than that. They're structural. Our problems are with the entire way in which we organize ourselves. They are a problem in the stories that we told not matching our actions. And honestly, we haven't given the American people now for successive generations the tools that they need to trust us. You brought up this fact that the American people don't trust us. I remember very viscerally at the beginning of the Tea Party, which we all can agree was partially fueled by racism against Obama, but was also partially because after talking such a big game about the economy and about what was going on, they saw a bunch of billionaires who took advantage of the system go and not be held accountable. Nobody went to jail. Nobody paid a price for what they did in 2008 to 2012, which almost tanked the nation. And I think a lot of people lost faith in American government, in democracy, and the Democratic Party because of it. Now, that's just one instance of when we had control and we didn't live up to the expectations that folks had with us. And we didn't necessarily level with the American people around those issues. You could say the same thing about other periods in which we held control of everything. I mean, we most recently did. And, we came in saying that we were going to do a lot of things, and we didn't do a lot of things. And so it's time. It's really time. And one of the things that I pointed to today, and I think that a lot of folks, kind of saw, especially in our kind of core group of friends and followers and other things, is the step before making those decisions is to really get right with ourselves about what went wrong, to take a moment and actually feel what this moment of failure actually means, and to do a level of deep introspection before we kind of rush in to the next round of what needs to happen. Because honestly, we do that every time. We have these campaign autopsies and we come up with 15 different things that should have happened, could have happened, would have happened if we did this, if we did that. And honestly, there are always these half measures or these part measures, and they aren't getting at the real realities of what's going wrong. And I hope that we really take this moment to do that this time, because I got to be honest, I don't think that we have a lot more time to really figure it out. Like, if we don't figure it out now, there's not going to be much of a Democratic Party or a democracy left to dig out of the next time. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that you all have already articulated a lot of really good stuff, and I do feel like it's a little above my pay grade to like think about how to fix a political party, which is really just like a conglomeration of a bunch of interests that make up half of the like yin yang of the U.S. political system. Some people end up over this side, some people end up over that side, and the ones that attract the most at any one moment or end up in the same coalition. So it's really hard for me to say, oh my gosh, this party needs to be fixed this way or that way. And I think you all, to the extent that I could, have already done that. I think the thing that is difficult for me to stomach is that I feel like there isn't any kind of mechanism for the many, many, many smart people who are a part of the Democratic Party's infrastructure and work in the party, work with Democratic Party organizations, to really get the word out about new things that are happening, new threats, new cultural events. To me, this is actually the culmination of something that I think probably a bunch of us on this call, but definitely me, have been seeing for the last decade. I mean, this is not a new issue. It is just the time when the same issue, which is actually, it's not like it's even emerging now, right? Like, it emerged in 2016. Like, why do you think that Steve Bannon ended up Donald Trump's chief strategist? It's because he took young video game men who are disaffected and turned them into a media empire with Breitbart. So, and then Donald Trump won. So why is it that nobody at the highest echelons of the party ever took a meeting ever to figure out that this was the reason why Donald Trump had an army, beyond just older people getting more populist since their retirement dreams washing away, and in the intervening time since then, it's been 8 years since then. How is it that people are just now arriving at this realization that young men are being pulled into a closed media loop that they can't get out of? This is not new. It is a major event that has been a slow rolling snowball over the past decade, and lots of people know about it. I'm not the only one to notice this, right? Like, I was watching as it happened. This is called Gamergate. Those of you who haven't heard about it, number one, if you're working in the Democratic Party and you don't know what Gamergate is, you're part of the problem, right? And then number two, Google Gamergate, right? And then just know that is the reason why Donald Trump won the first, a contributing factor why Donald Trump won the first time, and now it is the factor, I think the deciding factor that led him to win now. So this is really not hard, and the fact that it's not hard and we still have repeatedly screwed it up is the thing that makes it really hard for me to stomach.
Well, Sam, first of all, it's not above your pay grade because, frankly, the people at the pay grade that you would say should have the solutions don't. And I think that it's really important that we're hearing all voices right now. And I'm really here after I talk, I'm really interested to hear what Rachel has to say about what she's hearing about 4 white guys diagnosing the problem. And, I'll go next. And I think everybody's right here. And I think, Mike, your point and Brad, about nobody trusting us is one of, if not the most important problem. And we have been the ones that say that we have the moral high ground and that we know what's right and they don't. And then, we don't deliver. It was a real problem, and it wasn't her fault, but it was a real problem that we did not have a primary. It wouldn't have worked the way that Biden dropped out, but I have heard over and over again from people who were just like, you guys talk about democracy, you talk about threats to democracy, and you didn't even have a real primary to pick your candidate. And I kind of scoffed at it at the time, but when you look at people who, we keep saying that we have the moral high ground, and then that stuff happens, it raises questions to people. I talked to a Trump voter yesterday from my home state of Maine, and who to this day loves Barack Obama. And he votes for Donald Trump. And there is a lesson in there. And I think that, Obama did stand for something and kind of stuck with it. And I think that, we haven't really delivered since then, though. We did get the ACA, which was hugely important and gave coverage to 20 million Americans. But a lot of that health inequality stuff is still elusive. And I don't think we've had answers for that. I think our answers on inflation were really bad, even though it was coming down. And the fact that we can't even get Democrats in Congress to agree that we should ban stock trades with members of Congress is a real problem. How are we the ones fighting for working people if we are allowing members of Congress to trade stocks for the companies that they are supposed to regulate and have oversight over? I know that's not the solution to everything, but we have to start living our values. And I think this is a real problem. And I think that's why people don't like us, because we say one thing and we do another. And I'll agree again with Mike. I think I really do want to know more about what's been going on in the White House over the past year. I really do. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, Tim. I don't want to interrupt, but I want to kind of press down on something that you just said that I think is really important and allows a candidate like Donald Trump to succeed in American politics the way that he does. We scream about fascism, and when I say we, I don't really, but a lot of people scream about fascism, and they scream about him being a convicted felon, and they scream about him being a rapist and all that other stuff, and things that are legitimate. I'm not trying to put them down or anything for somebody who's listening. People, but politicians are crooks. People believe that none of us are living our values. People believe that we're all out for ourselves, and to a certain degree, that's true. And you're right, we're not living our values. And in an environment where Donald Trump has a very clever class critique and a structural critique that is unbelievable to me. And when I listen to him on Joe Rogan talk about it, because I might be the only Democratic operative who listened to the entire Joe Rogan interview, which I had to be then pulled out of it, because otherwise I was about to start playing video games all day and living in my mother's basement. But he has this amazing critique that the system is rigged, and he's like, I know how to take advantage of it, and I'm going to use it to help you. And then he peppers that in with other stuff, which is be afraid of these immigrants and horrible things about women. So I don't want to put any of that away. Just he has an incredible critique that we have no answer for. And on inflation, yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Can I jump in? Sorry, this is where I want to always raise my hand in this conversation. Donald Trump's a fucking liar. So it's really easy to go on a podcast with Joe Rogan, who's a full of shit, anti-vax, neo-Nazi, knuckle-dragging comedian cum podcaster who's never held to any standard of any kind. Nobody ever fact-checks him. Nobody says you're lying. He only brings people on his show. The reason he didn't do that, you guys can argue with me all you want about this. The reason that Joe Rogan did not roll out the carpet in a more genuine way to Kamala Harris is because he knew she was going to be she would challenge him. Because Kamala is somebody who can sit across. I saw her do this many times, and if I thought that she sucked at this, I would say this right now. One of my favorite things about her is that she is somebody who, in the moment, in the pocket, can be like, no, absolutely not. What you just said is wrong. That is not true. And I saw her do it to a lot of people, right? So it's not an apples to apples comparison to say we should be assigning a standard of morality and popularity from someone who's just will say anything, right? Like, and that is, I think, kind of the bigger problem is that I'm going to go back to what Sam said. And Sam, not that I disagree with anybody here. Like, we're all in the same. We're all fishing from the same pier. But like,
we're all on the same team, even with legitimate disagreements.
100%, yeah. So, but I think that's one of the problems that I have is that the reason that Trump does well in places like Missouri and Nebraska, where Mike you're from, and Brad, I have no idea where you're from and how well Trump did there.
Miami, Florida.
Oh, yeah, he did okay. Is because the guy is the white racist answer to Barack Obama. So that as much as there's this romance about the Tea Party, that it was all about economic populism, and I'm not saying that it didn't have that element to it. I grew up in a family of conservatives. I know what they whispered about Bill Clinton. I know what they said out loud about Barack Obama. So the racist answer to Donald Trump has always been Donald Trump. And that side of the world was angry that we had a celebrity. And your friend Tim, who lives in Maine, just votes for celebrities. And he's too embarrassed to say, I don't understand what any of the words mean. I'm not trying to shit all over him. I'm not invalidating the things that he says. But democracy is a very difficult system. What's the old expression? It's the worst system except for all the other ones.
Yeah,
Winston Churchill.
That's a Churchill quote. Yeah.
Churchill.
Yeah. So the problem is that we are this massive country, and I forget which one of you just said this, that the Democratic Party is really a collection of state parties, right? And some of them are very, very good and very effective, and some of them suck because they are. I would say Tim and I talk with the New York Democratic Party all the time. Just knock them all you want. I'm here all day for that. The Missouri Democratic Party does what it can do. They had really good leadership this cycle. One of you mentioned Lucas. I think, Mike, you did. It's always going to be hard to be the person that has to rebuild the infrastructure when there isn't any, et cetera, right? So I think the temptation is always to be like, how did we get here? And I've heard the same conversation about how did we get here for 30 years or something. I heard it in 2001. I heard it in 2004. I heard it in 2016. Like, I've heard it's the same one. It's a variation of the same theme. But I want to go back to what Sam said, because I think that is where, as a group of men, we can be the most effective in this conversation, right? Because we have a I don't always agree with Scott Galloway, but I agree with his thesis that we have a young man problem in our country. And I guess I'll start with Sam, because you brought this up, because you brought up Gamergate, and you brought up Bannon's understanding of how to manipulate those very vulnerable, very online people. And I think they became even more online during COVID. They had nowhere else to go. And so I'll start with Sam, but then I want to go around. That I've been thinking about this a lot the last couple of days, because I knew I was going to be talking to a group of well-concerned, compassionate, thoughtful, kind, empathetic men from my vintage, give or take, mostly give. But I've always thought that one of the problems that America has that is dissimilar to other countries is that when we turn, young women have a sort of different set of problems that I can talk about with other people later. I think the problem that young men have is that we give them suburbia. We're like, we figured it all out. We wanted you to be safe, and we wanted you to have good schools, and we wanted you we wanted a chicken in every pot, and we wanted you to have, so we built these car-centric communities where you have three choices as far as cultural activities as a man. You can be an athlete, you can get married, or you can go to church. Now, if those things don't sound interesting to you, and if you're straight, right, let's assume that I'm not talking about our LGBTQ plus community. If you don't want to, if you're having a hard time connecting with other young women, if you're not athletic, and you are not interested in being screamed at every week by a homophobic, racist, whatever, I'm not saying all churches like that, just the ones that I know growing up, where do we put them? And I think that is one of the greatest things that we have to address. If we're gonna solve the Donald Trump impending fascism problem in our country, We have to figure out a better way for young men to find spaces in the real world, physical spaces in our built environment where they feel safe and like they're a part of something. So, because otherwise they're going to become Donald Trump gun-loving terrorists. So, I want to throw that out there, and I would love to hear what everybody has to say about that.
So I'll just add, it's not even that they got more online during COVID. It's actually literally happening in the last year and a half. I saw an amazing statistic just a few weeks ago that in 2022 or 2023, like the graph was like 1 hour a day of playing video games for the average man 18 to 25. Just in the last year and a half, like late 2023 and all the way through 2024, we're now at almost 2 hours a day. So it's almost double what it was a year and a half ago, just in terms of time spent playing video games. And that is shocking to me. I wasn't aware of that until recently, and it really speaks a lot to what's going on right now.
I'm going to plus one, Rachel. I'm going to yes and, because I love being in a what do you call it? Oh damn! I lost my thought there. So my yes and to you, Rachel, is that part of the problem is this idea of kind of creating community and creating space in the real world, but there's also this other problem that I think the Democratic Party has been kind of ill-suited over the last 20 years to really deal with. I don't think that we really understand populism anymore. And I feel as though, as a party, a large portion of what we're up against is the fact that when populism has arisen in American society, there are always these two forces that are supposed to compete for that populism. There is the side that is willing to try and take advantage of it in order to create a less democratic system, or there's a group of people who are willing to channel it into something new and something that is a little bit more egalitarian, but that sets the rules in a way where the society benefits everyone again. Because populism has always occurred in our country in moments where the balance gets off kilter. And, like when I was talking about what happened in 2008 to 2012, and a lot of people got this answer in their minds of, there are clearly two sets of rules. There's a set of rules for the people at the top, for the wealthy. There's a set of rules for everyone else. So if that's the case, then what do the rules matter? Because if I'm in that world, I look at that and go, well, it's clear to me that the set of rules that I want to follow are the ones that everybody who gets ahead follow. And that means I'm supposed to do whatever I want. I'm supposed to trample on anyone who gets in my way. And I'm naturally going to be inclined to follow leaders who emulate that thought.
Sure.
In periods where we've gotten this right, and I'm not saying we need a new deal, but there were times in which we looked at these problems and we said, okay, what we actually need to do is create balance again. We need to rebalance government. We need to rebalance the economy. We need to rebalance the rules. And then we need to hold to those rules in order to ensure that everyone understands that those expectations are actually carried forth amongst everyone. Go ahead, Rachel.
No,
yeah.
I was gonna. So you're talking again, kind of about this sort of macro problem, right? Like you're talking about this macro. I'm talking about something I think is a bit more logistical and something that is sort of plaguing our society, which is that we don't offer alternatives to young men in conservative spaces that are physical in nature, outside of go to church, join a team, get a girlfriend. And I think, to Sam's point, if we don't address that, if we don't figure something out, if we don't give young women are a bit different. We socialize differently. Again, that's a different, I would say our issue is more that we are oppressed. So that young men, if they don't fit those molds in 2024, they still don't have anywhere to go. in the lived environment. And so they are finding corners of the internet that reinforce this increasingly toxic ideology. And I think, and you know, I'm not saying that I have any answers. I don't really know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not saying that is, I'm being very, and I think video games can be very productive and very fun. I don't think we should say that, you know, every single young man that plays video games is being dragged into some like incel corner of the internet or whatever.
Not at all.
Don't take away my Nintendo Switch, please.
No.
I think we're all gamers here.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm more saying that if this is something that I just keep trying to like emphasize to people, that I've been waiting my entire life for an alternative. Now look, I don't want to crap all over the suburbs, but I will tell you that the reason I bring this up is because the rural male gets a bad rap. The urban male gets a bad rap for other reasons, but the suburban male always kind of gets this pass. And I think that the problem that I have continued to see is that if you are from a kind and loving family, well, you probably, your host is okay. It's fine that you live in a remote area and you need a lift to go to your friend's house or whatever. But if you have anything at all going on at home where it's discomforting and maybe one of your parents is a substance abuse or whatever, those kinds of things, where are you going to go? And I think that is the issue in an era of charter schools and more. So that's kind of, again, the question I'm going to give it back to you, Brad, and then I want to hear Mike talk about this a little bit. What as men do you have to say about, like, how can we address these sort of like physical infrastructural issues going beyond, I agree that we need a New Deal, and bless Joe Biden, he tried everything he could. The filibuster certainly had a lot to say about that. So let me throw that back out, and I'm just dying to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Absolutely. I'll kick us off, and then I'll go to Mike. I think that your analysis is correct, that what you are basically speaking to is that the way that we're socializing men is wrong. The way that we're socializing men has put men into a place where they are either being fed a toxic view of masculinity, or they are falling into these categories which reinforce toxic masculinity. But in any case, what exists out there that doesn't do that? What exists out there that doesn't? And, I don't think that there's a simple answer. I certainly don't pretend to have an answer. I think your analysis of the problem is right. And I think that one of the things that, I grapple with in my head, and I know Mike and Sam and Tim share this experience, is for a brief moment when we started White Dudes for Harris, it felt like we pierced the filter bubble for the first time in a long time. We got through. We were able to move out into that, toxic media environment, and we created a lot of fear in the other side because we were able to do it. I think it's because we were authentic, we were normal, we approached this from the perspective of being good guys and showing a different way forward, and we got people to kind of see it in a different way. But I kind of want to take a step back and give it to Mike, because I know that he has actually given a lot more thought and has analyzed this a lot deeper than a lot of other folks have.
Yeah, I'm gonna struggle with my answer here a little bit, Rachel. And I everything I'm about to say comes with due respect. I have a difference of opinion, I think, with not everything that you said, but maybe like the way and the framing of some of it. Like, I agree that men don't have enough physical spaces to go to that are not toxic, and they're obviously, like, a lot of young men are being fed a version of masculinity that I think is completely ridiculous.
I wouldn't say that those places are all toxic. I would just say that there's not that many of them, like, in my opinion. That's all I meant. There's limited choices for physical places for young men to go express themselves. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to view it this way. The system really doesn't work for anybody unless you make more than $100,000, and unfortunately we are the perpetrators and the owners of the system today because we control the White House. And if you look at the exit polling data, we won people who make over $100,000, and we did okay with people that make 50 to 100, and we got killed by people who make less than 50,000. And when it comes to men, young men in particular, they don't see a path to buy a house, get a good paying job, marry a woman. I don't want to be heteronormative, but like, you know what I mean? You know, marry a partner, retire with dignity, buy a nice car, etc. And so Scott Galloway says this all the time. I listen to Scott Galloway all the time, and I always say I agree with about 70% of what he says, and then 30% of the time I go, you know. And then, you know, I also listen to Jordan Peterson, and then I do the reverse, where I go, I agree with Jordan Peterson like 30% of the time, and there's 70% of the time I'm like, what? Because it's just like crazy. But sorry, was someone else talking? Oh, okay. If the system doesn't work for them, they're going to be drawn to spaces that speak to them, and we don't speak to them at all. And so I actually think that in terms of net good, church communities are net good. Sports communities are net good for men and for women, and everyone in between. And we need to create more space, but we need to make it really clear to men, this is the path for you that lets you achieve the things that you want, that lets you earn the things that you want, because people don't want things handed to them. I don't think anybody does. They want to earn them, and they want to have a fair shake at it, and I think in the system they don't have it. And we haven't done that. We haven't talked to them enough. We haven't contributed to that space. And the other thing is, like, for better or for worse, at the moment in American politics, we are in a period of identity politics where we organize ourselves based on identity. And identity extends beyond race, to be clear. And I think that all the Zoom calls that we have for Kamala Harris show that, because not only we started with black men and black women and white women and then white dudes, and then we moved on to like comic book nerds and, you know, classical guitarists, like all kinds of other like cool communities. That is an interesting way to organize. I'm not knocking it. But if we're going to, and Galloway talks about this a lot too, if we're going to organize and have like Kamala Harris put out an agenda for black men and say, here's my agenda for black men and here's how I'm going to help you, you also need to do that for white men. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it is a mistake. And you'll hear people who will say, well, oh, white men have all the power and white men have all the money and white men have all the opportunity. Yeah, but it's concentrated in like 2-3% of white men. The concentration problem of wealth and opportunity exists for white men as it exists for every other community. And the system might make it easier for white men, but it doesn't make it easy. And that is the problem, and people are fundamentally self-interested. So if we're going to organize ourselves by identity in this way, it is important that we advocate in all identity, because Donald Trump sure does that. Donald Trump sure does that and speaks to that for those people, and we don't. And I think that's a mistake. And there are real and legitimate problems in the white community in particular, but also in the male community in particular. And I don't want to, by the way, there are bigger problems, I would argue, for women in this country, like no doubt about it. That's why I'm on this side of the fence and not on the other side of the fence, because I care about those things. But I have the luxury of caring about them because I do pretty well. Like, I run a successful small business, and like my wife has a great job, and like we're doing well. And I live in Chicago in a nice neighborhood, and like that's a luxury that I can afford. But what I loved about our White Dudes call was the diversity of experiences that different men had about their experience. I'll never for the life of me forget Sean Astin, who's the actor that played Rudy in Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings, crying, getting emotional, talking about his brother's struggle with addiction and his brother's men's group helping him get through that. And men's groups are an old-fashioned idea that should probably come back in some way, and creating those spaces where, and I hate to say this, where men can be men, because like a lot of times when people say that, it sounds ridiculous. But we need to do that, and we need to acknowledge the fact that white men in America are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than any other group of people.
Yeah, I think you're answering my question. I think what I'm hearing is that we need to find opportunities for people of means. I wasn't, by the way, I never said, I'm saying, like, I think men in general have a crisis of community in our culture. I don't necessarily think they're all white. I think that they're people
I don't think they're all white either. We're just the white dudes.
Yeah. I think like, I'll say like people that are isolated by geography, and I don't want to take the suburbs off the table, because I think I take the suburbs out of the conversation when I think they should be a part of the conversation, because just because you have means doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get depressed, that you're not going to feel lonely and isolated. I mean, most mass shooters are not poor. So it sounds like the answer to the question is we need to figure out how we can connect mentorship programs and normalize the idea of sharing your feelings in all male spaces, right? Like, that sounds like a great place to start to me. And I think that's what I would put to people who are listening to this and talking about this, is like, where outside of what I would say are these other kind of channels? Because the chances are, if you're somebody who's good at sports, you're going to find a mentor. If you,
Can I jump in here, though? Because
yeah, of course.
some of the spaces that are being created or need to continue to be created that are positive are really going to be about role models, because we say this about little girls who want to be president all the time, which is like you can't be something if you haven't seen something before. The same is true for a man. If you've never had a mentor that taught you how to be an emotionally available human being, like I didn't have one growing up. I don't know how the hell I stumbled into it, but I did. Somebody along the line showed me that on some level, and I was able to tap into it. Like, I love New Heights with Travis and Jason Kelce, okay? Do I think at least one of them voted for Trump? Probably, if not both of them. But, they are showing what it's like to be supportive of women, and they are showing what it's like to be emotionally available, and, and showing how to be tough. Because, I loved Jason Kelce destroying that guy's phone over this past weekend, okay? I told my wife was, outraged by it, and I was like, if you got in my face and you called my brother a slur, I'm not physically fit like Jason Kelce, but we would have had problems. And so I like stuff like that, and we need more spaces like that so that people aren't turning to others. But there's another fundamental issue for the Democratic Party, and Tim, I'll hand it back to you because I can see that you've got something on the tip of your tongue. We as a party, whether we mean to or not, we come off as preachy and we make people feel bad. And we expect people to grow at a rate that is not sustainable for things that they don't understand. I have a buddy, and I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want anybody to be able to track him. But he says all the time, and he voted for Trump. We went to college together, and he's a good guy. I have no real problems with him. But he voted for Trump, and it was mostly guns. He doesn't really like the guy, but he voted for him for that reason. And he would say all the time, I don't understand anything about being gay. He's like, I just don't understand it at all. But I don't have to understand it to get it. And I think we expect people to understand it, and then we preach to them, and then we make them feel bad because they don't understand it. And that's why, one of the things that I think was the scariest thing, those Trump ads where Donald Trump was like, Kamala Harris is for they, them, not you. Really good tagline. I hate it. I don't like it. Didn't make me feel good, but I think it underlined a key point that the Trump campaign tapped into, and that's unfortunate.
So I got two things, and I think that's 100% right. And I am going to, Rachel, I'm going to push back a little bit on this person just because I know them personally. But he was tired of being told that he was stupid, sexist, and racist all the time. And we did that. Look, I understand, and I think a lot of these people are, but there is a group of those people that we have the evidence there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality. It doesn't mean that we have to understand it. And I think that's part of our problem. Because I don't get it. I 100%.
Guys,
go ahead.
Can I say something? I know I'm not part of the podcast. I'm just a creative guy in the background making stuff look
You're
pretty.
the producer. Yeah. Shout something. Go ahead.
I got a weird perspective, and unique perspective here. I live in, Brad, you live in Miami. I'm in Davie, Florida. I'm up in...
I know Davie very well.
I'm up in Yeehaw, man. And I'm not only surrounded by in Yeehaw, geographically, but I was raised by a bunch of Republicans. My mom and all that, they kind of went far more left once this ugliness started raising their head. And my dad and grandparents kind of dug in and was like, I like what he's saying. I'm total disconnect with what's going on there. But I'm also involved in the heavy metal scene, which tends to have a really big division of not culture, but a lot of just rebellion for rebellion's sake in some ways, and then it's got a lot of I'll drop the first F-bomb, but it's just fuck you, don't tell me what to do. It's got that kind of thing in there. Sorry.
No, totally. Before you go any further, I just need to know, how long have you been involved in that community?
So I was 13. I'm 36.
Okay. So
I'm still playing in bands. I still you can see here, I still got all the goodies and all the tools.
I spent at least a day every single week growing up at the Edge in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So I know this scene. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know that in those mosh pits, it's a bunch of neo-Nazis and sharps
Ton of that.
and a bunch of other folks
Funny enough,
who are
you said sharps. That is funny. We violently kick those people out of the scene. They don't come to those shows anymore. Right. Funny enough, but that's a whole different story.
Rock on.
Totally different story.
Right.
But when we talk politics, and I'm in a band with a guy on the opposite side of the spectrum. Super interesting conversations and have stuff happen. And, that whole, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me how to live my life. Don't be the police. Don't be the moral police. Let's just be that separate, be on my own little thing there. That's huge in that community. So you got like what used to be the community of rebellion and, anti-pearl clutchers and anti, the religious right that was all against that. All of a sudden I'm seeing some of these dudes side with them now because the societal conversation of what's okay and what's not okay, because you're having that conversation, you've already become my antagonist, and therefore I'm going to the Trump side because he's telling me I can say whatever the hell I want. And that's selfish, that's wrong in some ways, but like that is a big part of being an American on some level. Like fuck you, don't do it, don't tell me what to do. Like Rage Against the Machine on the opposite side was telling you fuck you, don't do what you tell me, or whatever that line was. Like that's now this whole switch over into what used to be the pearl clutchers, and now it's something else. It's completely something else on the Democratic Party.
Chris, I think you're 100% correct, and I think this is like I'm going to go back to my friend. Go ahead, Rachel.
I just want to say really quickly, and I'm just going to be the person who says this over and over again, because I think a lot of this has to do with geographic perspective. And I have lived in Missouri for the entirety of Trump's political career, aside from his birther era, right, that gave him political agency. And we cannot undo the damage that Fox News has done. Like, this is a whole information ecosystem, which I think is really like central to how we got where we are. And I can't, again, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. The reason that people voted for Donald Trump is in spite of the fact, in many cases, that he's transphobic and homophobic.
Yes.
And a lot of people initially supported him because they thought he was secular. So the fact that he has held together this coalition, I think for now goes back to what Brad was talking about, which is all about the billionaires who are no friend to the Democratic Party, unfortunately. I know we have ours too. I'm not saying that, I'm sure if all of us could snap our fingers and undo Citizens United, we would do that in a heartbeat. But like, I don't want to get into the habit, but I don't know that shoehorning this conversation into the Democrats are the do-gooders and don't tread on me, like all that stuff. I think that is sort of a reflecting pool that we keep that we always get into when we do these kind of like postmortem conversations. I'm going to go back to what I said before, and then Chris, you can cut this out or not, I don't care. I have to go upstairs and grab my meds that I forgot to take at 1, which I take for pain, so I'll be back in a hot flash. So you guys continue without me. I'll be right back. That is only part of the problem. People in Missouri, a lot of these, when you look at the kind of that red map, the sort of the evangelical nature of the United States always comes back to bite us, and we are the ones who are in the abusive spousal relationship with this religious right movement that is so difficult to tangle with because the Americans for Prosperity and all those people are like completely willing to do business with them to get what they want. So I'll just throw that out there, and now I'm going to go away and let Chris continue talking. Bear back.
Well, I'll chime in, and I think what we're all saying is there's not one problem here. There is a myriad of problems that is across the spectrum, and it's not just men. I mean, we lost white women too. Like and we almost lost the Latino vote completely. But it goes back to this, and Mike, I think you were talking about this a lot, like this element of community. And I would say, like, I was one of the guys who played sports. I think I was the only kid in my high school that played 3 sports, all 4 years. So like, I was just constantly doing that. But like after college, and then there's college for some people where there's obviously a sense of community. But when you graduate, there's nothing except really partying, which means drinking or other things, and there's not much else. And it's a real problem. And I think women do a better job of getting together and talking about things and being open. And I will say that I am 46 years old, and working with this white dude's team and the broader campaign is the first time that I have ever been in a conversation with a group of guys who were willing to be vulnerable and were open and were listening, because we tell men not to do that. We tell them to keep their feelings inside, and I think that's why we have some of this powder keg. And Mike, I see you want to say something, so go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to choose my words. I feel like I always have to choose my words carefully because I'm the most likely to cause a shitstorm on this call.
Oh, I want it. It's good. It's good. I can't say good radio. It's good podcasting. So let's hear it.
It is impossible in modern society to create genuine, meaningful connections with people. And I think men and women, to a certain degree, are taught to not be vulnerable with complete strangers. And I joined, when I was low, and for people who've never seen this before, like I came pretty close to, well, this is going to be on YouTube, right? So I have to use the term unalive. I believe it's what the kids say to keep the algo happy. But I came pretty close to hurting myself, probably the easiest way to put it, at my lowest in 2020 in the summer, which also happens to be like one of the best professional years of my life. So, just keep that in mind for how you plan out your life. And a lot of it was that I didn't have a community, and so I did certain things in my mid 30s. I went back and got my MBA, which was a business decision. But I told my wife at the time, I'm going to go spend $100,000 and try a second chance at making some friends, because I didn't do a very good job of it when I went to college the first time. That was one of the things. If I would have told you the 3 reasons I did it, it was for that reason. And I probably never said that out loud to anyone but my wife. And the second thing is I joined an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a small group of like entrepreneurs here in Chicago, and it's a global organization with local chapters, and they talk a lot about the 5%, and that 90% of the conversations that you have with anyone in your life are rapid, boring. They're about the weather. They're like, hey, is that cumin in that dish over there? Like, blah, blah, blah. They don't matter, and you won't remember them. But there's 5% good in your life, and there's 5% bad in your life. And the more you share that with people, the better off you'll be, the better leader you'll be. And learning that, I have conversations with complete strangers that I'll tell anyone how I'm doing. And then Brad and Tim know this. They'll be like, Mike, how are you today? And I'm like, oh, I'm feeling this. And it probably drives, maybe drives a lot of people crazy, but I'm not for everyone. But it's impossible to do that in society. You open your social media feed and people are only going to show you the top 5% of their life. Very few people are going to show you the bottom 5%. And maybe they'll show you some of that middle, but like you feel immediately behind on social media because when you go into LinkedIn every day, you see the 10 friends of yours that just got a promotion and a pay raise. And now you feel behind even though 99% of your friends didn't get any of that. You go on a dating app. Dating apps have been phenomenally horrible for men. Like there's a lot of evidence that women only go for the top like 10% of men, and then men don't know how to attract a woman or attract a partner, and that's a huge problem. And that's a technology and societal problem. I don't blame women for that. I think they've been conditioned for that, and I think like the Andrew Tates of the world blame women for that, and that's ridiculous. But like that's a technology problem, and technology has been designed by some of the most awkward people on the planet. The guy who invented the ATM machine was a relatively awkward man who hated having to talk to people in line at the bank to get cash. And so he invented a way so that no one would ever have to talk to anyone at the bank. So all those little moments are gone, and all those little moments of friction are gone. And so now you don't have any opportunity to make friends. You don't have any opportunity to build connections. You never feel your well, and that's a huge problem. Rachel, I want
to hear what Sam has to say, because then I want to jump in and say that you guys have all answered the first question that I had, which was like, how do we continue to emphasize that, like, as activists, as stakeholders? I guess I'll just say this, and then Sam, say, are you cool? Can you hold your place in line?
Please.
Okay, good. I don't want you to lose the train.
I would never lose this. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. And I think this all the time too, that like we have to figure out a way to have conversations with young people, particularly young men, because again, women suffer from different antisocial issues and suffer different pain points from society that are slightly different than men. Because we're told to take all the stuff. We're told, you have to be emotionally available and emotionally intuitive, and you have to be nurturers, and you have to like whatever. And men, you guys have to go slay the bison, and you have to bring home. You have to be rich and successful, and if your wife makes more than you, then you're emasculated, and you're a beta cuck, and whatever. All this other nonsense. But what I'm hearing all of you say, because I was deeply curious, and that's why it was the first question I asked, was what I'm hearing is that we need to do a better job of building a cooperative built environment that encourages physical contact, socialization, and mentoring opportunities. And I think that's
emotional openness.
An emotional openness, correct? Because I will say that I moved as a woman with a partner who's been very sick for many, many years, unfortunately. And I told Tim, he was like, "Oh, it's okay if you cry on the phone." I was like, "It's the white dude's call. Like, I assume if I have an emotional moment about my gravely ill husband, like, it's gonna be fine." I've had a very difficult time meeting people in St. Louis because I moved back when I was in my mid-40s. Because, like, the world doesn't really want women unless we're in our fuckable phase, right? Like, I'm well past my fuckable phase. I'm not looking for a partner. I have one. He's busted up, but I still like him. I still want to keep him alive. There's not a lot of options because I'm not religious. I don't really want to join a church just to make friends because we're not going to have the same worldview. So what's the point? No, I don't want to say the same worldview. There's a fundamental belief system there that I'm not going to buy into that you're super invested in and I don't belong in your space. Like, that's invasive and I wouldn't do that. But we do need to, I think about these, like, how are we going to build opportunities for friction, an intimacy, an accidental conversation in a world driven by the convenience of the internet? I think that is a golden question, and it's the one I'm going to take away from me in my headspace, and I'm going to start asking that to more people because I like it.
Rachel, I'll just add a thought on top of that though, and I'm not telling you to go to the church down the street and suddenly convert to Christianity or something like that.
It won't happen anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
I gotta jump in here, man. Make it quick.
Oh, okay. I just want to say that the opportunities for connection are out there.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't take them.
It's just hard. It just gets harder as you get older. It just
in a
gets
pickleball
more...
league, like whatever, like it's out there. You know,
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
and I think that it's not that the opportunities aren't out there. It's that people don't have a reason to leave their house when you could DoorDash your food, and it's scary to be outside.
Well,
and, like,
but also
like
as you become an older person, I mean, I'm a lot older than everybody on this call. I'm in my 50s. Like, there is a sort of like also like I don't like it at some point if your circumstances in your life change, sometimes there are doors that are suddenly that used to be slightly more open that become a lot harder to push open. And if you're a party of one or if you don't have a community around you, that can be scary. And I'm very social, so I will kick a door open. I'm fine. But like I'm very empathetic towards the people that I know who don't feel emboldened to do those things and who don't know how to kick doors open. And I'm saying that what we're saying is we need to figure out how to hold doors open for people. And that's kind of getting back to the economic message that good economic populism should make sure that you see as many open doors as possible. Now I want to know what Sam was going to say.
All right. Sam, and we're going to say Sam's going to get the last word on this, and then we're going to.
And I will not be long. I will not be long. So I got to be real. This goes way beyond politics. I mean, it's just like we're talking about this in the context of the political party and an election loss, but this is so deep, and I think it actually even goes. It's like thousands of years deep, right? I mean, the reason why we've seen churches, which we've been talking about, atrophy and secularism rise is because the traditions that we've seen for thousands of years in churches have only gotten more and more corrupt. And the messages they've been communicating about what it means to be masculine or feminine have been getting more and more corrupt. So the men that these younger men are being taught to idolize are not actually masculine men. It is a pale imitation of the real masculine. Because if you look at Elon Musk or Donald Trump and see a man who's living his masculine and inhabiting that masculine well, you don't see the full picture. I see men who are nursing addictions, who are not in control of regulation of their own nervous systems, not managing the space around them or taking care of the people around them very well at all, and they are weak. They have no impulse control. And if you were to ask me what, to me, the strength of masculinity actually means, and this is just me talking under there. Like there's a whole set of opinion of people out there talking about, what gender means. To me, what gender means is, for masculine side, is about discipline and control of yourself, and then helping the people around you feel safe to feel in discipline and control of themselves and their own nervous systems. And the idols that men have right now are so poor an example that this is a massive problem we have, but there's a lot of hope here, because all that needs to happen is that for people who actually are in their healthy masculine to be on stage with these folks, to be in contrast with these folks, to have the microphone for 5 minutes on a podcast, and all of these people from Elon Musk to Donald Trump and all of them are going to end up shaking and falling over because they are not living the masculine. They're weak.
Sam, are you talking about stoicism at all? Is there a bit of stoicism in there?
There's a lot of different philosophies. 100%. A lot of different philosophies, but stoicism is a really valuable one to draw upon, yeah. And there are a lot of people out there who are already practicing this stuff, and this is going to come to the fore. We're going to deal with this.
But I just want to say for any man who's watching this, and really anyone, everyone should read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius if you've never read it before. It is
Absolutely.
It is a beautiful reflection on how to be a real man and a real leader, and everyone should read it. And it's from a Roman emperor from thousands of years ago, which is, by the way, a good example that yes, all men do think about the Roman Empire every single day.
All right, well, we are going to have to wrap it there. I want to thank everybody. There is so much to unpack as we move along, so this is the first of many conversations, I'm sure. Thank you to Brad, to Sam, to Mike, and also to my co-host Rachel, and to our producer extraordinaire Chris for joining us today. This first episode of PolitiGood, sorry, I've got to get used to saying that, I think is going to be really interesting for people to watch, and I want to thank you guys. Also, it has just been such a joy to work with you guys on the White Dudes for Harris stuff, and I'm excited to continue working with you in some capacity in the future. So thank you guys, appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks to
Timmy.
Rachel.
Today's episode was produced by Rachel Parker and Tim Fullerton. Audio, music, and engineering by Chris Lombardo. Our associate producer is Lizette Cecilia. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts and watch entire episodes on our YouTube channel. You can email us at hello@politigood.com.